Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'm going to be flipping this 6-drawer basset dresser. It's already been painted once before, but it's all scratched up. There's paint missing and there's scribbles on the drawer front. Some kid must have gotten into this dresser. Now if you like this type of content, please make sure to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe down below if you aren't already, as it really does help small channels like mine grow. And let's get into the video. The very first thing I wanted done to this dresser is to get a new modern base on it. Ever since DIY Wife came out with her base building tutorial, we have been building bases almost as often as we can. Now this isn't a full tutorial since you can learn over at DIY Wife's channel, but I did want to show you a bit of the process in case perhaps you wanted to try it out for yourself. This is all the tools that you'll need, but also include a miter saw or just a regular saw. The very first thing you want to do is measure the base and cut your wood. Now make sure to account for the feet because they are about 1.5 inches, I believe. Then as you can see here, we are drilling in pocket holes on each end and several down the length of the wood. This is where you're going to screw all the screws in to not only build the base, but also kind of attach it to the dresser itself. From there, you'll have all of your parts. You just have to assemble them and get it attached to the body of the dresser, just as we did here. Then, just like that, this dresser now has a new fancy base that is about to go with its new fancy makeover. And now at this point we have this beautiful new base that not only modernizes the furniture more, but it's also going to add a lot of value to this piece when we go to sell it, since we are flipping for profit. It's just a little bit past 12 and I am going to try to flip this piece in one day. So although this base is on, this piece very clearly still needs a makeover. So let's go ahead and get started on it. As you can see, this dresser doesn't have any hardware, and that's because actually underneath here, this little lip, there is some built-in hardware here. I did debate on adding hardware just for looks, but as of now, I think that this will actually be okay without hardware, and really we're trying to keep the cost pretty low, so whether I add new hardware or not, that's going to be something that I decide at the very end. Because there is no hardware that we have to take off, I'm going to go ahead and pull out these drawers so that we can keep moving forward. Now obviously this piece is already painted and there are some pretty big scratches on it, and for that reason I want to make sure to go ahead and do a scratch test just so that I can determine what I am going to be doing with this piece. Whether that be needing to sand it all the way down because this finish is failing, or just doing a light scuff sand and moving forward with priming and painting. Now scratch tests are pretty simple and straightforward. It's something that I did in middle school, so really all you do is you take your fingernail and you just kind of scratch the surface and see if the paint comes off with it. If it does scratch off, that basically means that the surface isn't very strong, whereas if nothing does come off, then your surface should still be pretty good, and these scratches may just be from people scraping things along the surface. Perhaps the previous family had kids or something of that nature, and that's why there's so many scratches on it. Because the paint wasn't scratching off easily, it was strong enough to move forward. The next step was doing a scuff sand. This will roughen up the surface just enough for the new primer and paint to bond to the surface. I started with a 220 grit, but I realized 150 grit may be a little bit better just to roughen up the paint just a bit more, but you really only want to do a medium grit. I wouldn't go any lower than 150, maybe 120, but besides that, don't go any lower when you're doing a scuff sand. When you are doing a scuff sand, the goal is to do it everywhere that is going to be painted. A scuff sand can be done by hand, like I'm doing here, or you can use a sander. I chose to do it by hand so less dust would fly around since I didn't have anyone to help me move the dresser outside. Note that you really should always be using a respirator to protect your lungs. Typically I do, but for some reason I just didn't do that this time around. Because there was so much of that paint dust from sanding, nothing else could be done until it was wiped down, and it needed to be wiped down pretty thoroughly. I'd say I probably wiped everywhere down 3 to 4 times until I finally got a clean rag. You really want to make sure to do this before any paint goes on, because especially a dark color like this, it's just going to bleed straight through. And then after I did that, I did go ahead and just kind of tape around the base like you can see here, because I didn't want to get any paint on that. Now we finally start to see some big changes in this next step. It's time for primer. I'm just using my favorite go-to primer from Zinsser called 123 Primer. This primer is a great adhesion primer, which is exactly what this dresser needs. Now make sure anytime that you are using a paint, a primer, a top coat, any sort of liquid solution, make sure that you are going ahead and mixing it thoroughly like I am here. Some of the materials or substances, whatever you want to call it, can float to the top, while some can stick at the bottom, and you just really want to make sure that it is all mixed in together so that you get the right bonding agent or whatever material it is you're using and what it's meant to be used for. You will see me doing a lot of painting by hand, but you can also roll on primer and paint as well. You can also use a spray gun or a sprayer to apply the paint. I personally just really like using a brush. I love the hand painted look, and although it takes a little bit longer, I just prefer it this way. It's less that you have to buy whenever I'm doing a roller. That's just, I have to keep buying the rollers. I do have one sprayer, but it's really not my favorite. I think before I would go ahead and do any more spraying, I would probably get a new one. So if you do spray any of your furniture pieces, maybe comment down below and give me some of your recommendations that I can look into, because I'm not opposed to spraying pieces. I just really haven't gotten very far into that. So I ended up doing 2 coats of primer, and it's just a little bit past 3 o'clock. After 2 coats of primer, I think it's ready for paint. Today I am going to be using my white paint. This paint is by Sherwin-Williams. I got it in the discount section of, I don't remember which hardware store this was, but it was only $9, so you really can't beat that. I really noticed that anytime that I flip furniture and I paint it in white, it sells a lot faster and it sells at a higher price. A lot of people really love to have white furniture in their homes, And so I'm just gonna keep it really basic on this piece because I'm really hoping that it's gonna go pretty fast. Now, I'm assuming I'm gonna need about 3 to 4 coats, so it might be kind of a late night. After this dresser has full coverage, we should be good because this is an all-in-one paint. I wanna get this finished tonight, so let's go ahead and get started. Along with the 2 coats of primer, I also needed 4 coats of this paint, which can definitely be expected when painting from a dark to light color, but after about 4 coats, the coverage was great as well as the finish, so I didn't need an additional top coat. I decided against adding additional hardware because by the end, I didn't feel it needed it, but let me know in the comments down below if you think I made the right choice or not. All of the products I used will be in the description box down below. Otherwise, let's go ahead and get into the final reveal.
Try to make it new. You can't fight it when it feels so true. You drive me crazy like no one else. The final moment before I lose myself. And it's no use working 9 to 5.